Bonjour, Walbenang me shake Hyokyak Dijnakaz, Bawa Ting Don Jabam, Ajajak and Dodem, Nishinabe Ojibwe in Da'al. Hello, my name is Marty Reinhardt. I'm a professor here at the Center for Native American Studies at Northern Michigan University. And today we're in the Wildcat Den kitchen. And we're going to demonstrate making pumpkin soup and pumpkin cornbread. Two of the recipes from the Decolonizing Direct Project cookbook. The Decolonizing Diet Project was a research project that we conducted through the Center for Native American Studies back in 2012. 25 of us actually participated in the project, and we ate anywhere between 25 to 100% of our daily diet was indigenous foods from the Great Lakes region. So those recipes that we're going to be demonstrating today come from that project. We're going to start with the pumpkin cornbread. So in the Decolonizing Diet Project cookbook, it's found under baked goods on page 10. So pumpkin cornbread. The ingredients include shelled pumpkin seeds, here, or pumpkin seed flour rather, cornmeal, maple sugar, sea salt, and we use organic sea salt as preferred. We use water, and then we have 3 duck eggs. So we're going to use 3 of these duck eggs here. And we have frozen sweet corn, organic sweet corn. We don't use any GMO products. And then we pour this sunflower oil into a baking pan just to coat the sides. And then we pour our ingredients after we mix them up into the pan, stick it in the oven. We bake it on 325. So here we go. First thing we're going to do, move these products here out of the way, and we're going to grind up our pumpkin seeds. Almost couldn't reach that. All right. So it calls for per recipe 1 cup of shelled pumpkin seeds, and we're actually going to make 2 recipes today, just to make a little bit more to share with everybody. You know, that's really one of the hallmarks of indigenous foods and indigenous culture is the idea of sharing food. And both my wife and I, our families, that's something that we always did when we had guests come over, is we fed them. And it didn't matter how much food we had, we shared what we had. It makes it even more special to think about our ancestors and how our ancestors might have shared this kind of food. So I'm using a coffee bean grinder to grind up these pumpkin seeds. Probably something our ancestors would not have had, but they would have had more of a butagan. Now, no matter what you're using to grind your pumpkin seeds, you don't want to grind them too long. If you grind them too long, they'll turn into pumpkin seed butter. So that's really the consistency you want. You don't want them to turn into butter, but you also don't want any chunks left in the flour itself. And you'll notice I unplugged my coffee bean grinder before I stick my fingers into the grinder itself. It's very sharp. Don't want that thing turning on accidentally. So always safety first. All right. That's perfect consistency right there. It's floury, but it's not so warm and sticky that it's turning into pumpkin seed butter. But let me tell you, pumpkin seed butter is a good thing. I really enjoy it. If you get the pumpkin seeds and you want to make butter, just let them go for a little bit longer in your grinder, and then they're going to be kind of sticking to the sides of the grinder. You might want to take them and pull them out, and then when you pull them out, you'll put them in a bowl, maybe put a little sunflower oil with them, mix them up. It'll be kind of like the consistency of peanut butter or almond butter. It's a really good treat. Alright, we got a little bit more of our second cup. So remember, we're doubling our recipe here. And that's it. That's it for our pumpkin seed grinding. I'll wrap that sucker back up, set it off to the side here. So one of the things that you'll notice is that I am preparing my dry ingredients first. And I do that just because it's a little bit easier then to mix them up. Make sure I put all my dry ingredients, mix my dry ingredients, and then start adding my wet ingredients. And so you'll see that it will make a difference if you ever try doing it any other way. Okay, so now we're going to add our cornmeal, and the recipe calls for a half a cup of cornmeal, so we're actually going to put a whole cup of cornmeal in because we're doubling our recipe today. Okay. Pretty cornmeal. And again, we're using organic products because we don't want to use any genetically modified or GMO frankenfoods in our recipes. So as I add my ingredients, I mix them up. Make sure they're all well distributed. Now I'm going to add my maple sugar. And again, it calls for a half a cup of maple sugar. I'm going to add a whole cup. And it's always nice to get products, your ingredients, from as local as you can. That is very healthy. I say the healthiest you can eat is local and indigenous. Because not only are we worried about human health, we're worried about environmental health, the health of the plants and animals and Mother Earth. So the more local and indigenous it is, the healthier it is for us as humans, but it's also that much more healthy for everyone else. Once again, distributing products, the ingredients within, making sure it's all well distributed, mixed well. And with maple sugar, sometimes you get these granules that you got to go in and make sure that they're not in lumps. So just kind of run your fingers through, make sure that they're all broken up. And otherwise you're going to get some really sweet spots in your bread that may actually bake a little bit differently than the other spots. There we go. Okay, so we have our maple sugar in there. Now we're going to look at a teaspoon of sea salt. Going to add a couple teaspoons. And, you know, I usually just can measure it in my palm of my hand because I've done it so many times. So this is going to be actually about the amount you want, just a little bit more because we're doubling the recipe. If you're not sure, make sure you use your teaspoon. Okay, and that is the end of our dry ingredients for our pumpkin cornbread. All right, now we get into the fun part, the wet ingredients. Woo! Okay, so wet ingredients include water, duck eggs, and frozen corn. So what we're going to start off with first is our duck eggs. The recipe calls for 3, and we're going to double it, so we're actually going to put 6 in. And if you're like me, you like to compost. And I always feel like, composting is not only good for growing your vegetables in your garden, it's a very healthy part of this diet, but it also respects the plants and animals that you're using. So for instance, these duck eggs, I could very easily throw these shells in the trash, but what does that mean, trash, right? What does it mean to throw something away? Well, I would rather use it and honor and respect its spirit. Make sure you don't get any shells in your bread mix. So 1 duck egg that we're using here, and these come from mallard ducks, or what we would call Pekin ducks. And Pekin ducks are descendants of mallards. And so 1 of these duck eggs equals about 1.5 chicken eggs. So if you're in an area where you can't access duck eggs or indigenous eggs, we always say if you can't access indigenous products, try to use the non-indigenous products that are closer to the indigenous products. So try to use organic, free-roaming, duck or chicken eggs if you can't get duck eggs. Try to get as close to the product as you can. But anyway, so 1.5 chicken eggs is about the same as a duck egg. Okay, so we got our duck eggs in there, and you're going to notice that I'm going to break up my duck eggs before I start putting my other wet products in there. Just again, so I can get those yolks distributed evenly with the other part of the egg whites. Okay, so I have that in there now. Now I'm going to put my sweet corn in, and it calls for 3/4 cup of sweet corn per recipe. This is organic sweet corn. And 2 3/4 cup servings is almost a whole bag, so we're just going to go ahead and put it all in there. Just because we're so close, it doesn't really matter. But the recipe calls for 3/4, so we definitely at least want to use 3/4. I like a little bit more corn in mine, so no big deal there. All right, now we're ready to add our water. And we're going to go over to the sink and we're going to get it's 1.5 cups of water per recipe. So that means we're going to use 2.5 cups. So I'm going to take my bowl over, get 2.5 cups of water, and I'll be right back. Okay, here's the last of our wet ingredients, and that's Bish, good old water, lifeblood of Mother Earth. We really got to respect that, right? Keep it clean, because it really flows through our bodies, flows through our world. It's in all of our food. So we really got to take care of that water, right? We're water protectors. Okay. So now, when we mix all the products together, they're nice and evenly distributed throughout the mix. Alright, so there's the mix. Now we're going to set that aside. And we're going to grab us some clean paper towel over here. And sometimes you have like a spray bottle that you can use. Would you grab me one more of these? So we're going to use two of these baking pans here because we actually doubled our recipe. And what I'm going to do, because I don't have a spray oil, I'm going to just use regular old sunflower oil here. And I'm going to put it on this paper towel. Sure it's nice and coated on the sides, especially down on the lower level of the pan, and then the bottom of the pan, just so that our bread don't end up sticking to the pan is one reason, but also it gives the crust of the bread a nice sunflower taste. So you got taste and utility both at the same time that we're concerned with here. All right, now we are ready to pour our batter into the baking pans. All right. So what I do is I put my pans together. Whenever I have more than one pan, I just put them side by side and I start pouring in one and then the other, trying to get as much in each pan as I can. And then because you also have this corn here and it starts to separate after a bit, just mix it up a little bit as you're pouring it. So get the bottom filled, get that bottom filled, come back over here, add a little bit more, a little bit for you, a little bit for you, trying to be all fair. Make sure whoever gets bread from whatever pan, they get as much corn and good stuff as the other pan. All right. Now, let's see. Do we have a spatula, a rubber spatula? Big watch. And get all that stuff again. You know, right, trying to respect the food, don't waste. Plus, that's really good stuff, you know. And it's expensive too, you know. If you're on a budget, which all of us are, you want to make sure that you get your money's worth. So you don't want to waste this stuff. And it'll help you washing dishes later, because you don't have to scrape so much stuff off. All right, there we go. We are ready to put this in the oven. We have our oven at 325, and as you can see, the recipe calls for about 20 to 25 minutes. It's really a matter of the oven, because some ovens, they operate differently. I always figure at least 20 to 25 minutes. We're going to put it in, see how it looks. Then we're going to come back and we'll start making our soup. And we'll check on it periodically just to make sure it's not burning. We want to make sure it's done. So here we go. All right. Okay. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to make our pumpkin soup. And we are using Jessica Cadro's recipe. Jessica Cadro is one of our Decolonizing Direct Project participants. And I'll put my glasses on just so I can read. I can't drive with them on, I can't walk with them on, but man, I can't read a cookbook with them off. Okay, so this is a real simple recipe, and this one calls for 1 cup of pureed pumpkin, and we got organic pureed pumpkin that we're going to use today, and we're going to increase the recipe just because we want to make some to share with the folks back at the Center for Native American Studies and maybe some of the folks working here. And then we're also going to add some broth and turkey stock. So we have some turkey stock here, and we have organic vegetable broth here, and then we have, again, our sunflower oil, and it calls for 1 teaspoon of oil. And that's it in the recipe. Now there are some things you can do to add to taste. You know, if we want, we might be able to add a little sea salt to taste. And that's really about it for this one. So we're going to go ahead and get these mixed together in this really beautiful soup pot here. And we have this really cool burner here that the chef was showing us earlier, that it's actually a smart burner. You can actually put a pot on, it'll heat the pot up, and you can pull the pot off and put your hand down on it and it won't even burn you. How smart is that? That's just really cool. I have to get one of those sometime after we get our treaty money. Hey, you know we're never going to get all of our treaty money, so I guess I'll never get one. Anyway, maybe one day. Okay, so we'll have to find a can opener, and we'll get our broth going meanwhile here. So we'll get our broth in our pot, and let's see, we'll turn this on. I'm going to turn it on medium. You don't want to scorch your stuff. Add our turkey broth. Amber made this turkey broth, didn't you? So we assume that it comes from a really good turkey day.
No gas station. Organic, locally sourced.
Organic, locally sourced. That's what I like to hear. We'll add our broth, our vegetable broth.
Good for our vegetarian vegan friends.
Yeah, and if you're a vegetarian or vegan, you know, just don't put the turkey broth in there, the turkey stock. Just add your vegetable broth. Oh, it's smelling good already. The smell of the bread baking in the oven, the smell of the broth here. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. All right, Amber, can you see if we can find a can opener around here somewhere?
Yeah.
Add a little bit of sunflower oil here. Okay. You know, the nice thing about simple meals is, one, they're not too difficult to create or recreate. And when you're in a hurry, you know, which a lot of us often are.
Stationary. So I can't move.
Oh, okay, gotcha. When we're in a hurry, no problem. Me glad, appreciate it. When we're in a hurry to create meals, like get home from work after a long day, or you got other things to do. I know that's why oftentimes people will order food out, or they'll go through fast food. But that fast food, man, it just really takes a toll on our bodies, right? And it's just so impersonal. When you have the opportunity to cook, it's a much more intimate relationship, especially when you're using indigenous foods. Because this reminds us about our relationships with the actual food itself. You know, when we're talking about these pumpkins, kosman, you know, these things, when we grow them in our gardens, we watch them grow in the summertime. They kind of like become part of our family. We're invested in that relationship. And we know if we take care of them, that they will take care of us by giving us that nutrition, that nourishment that we need. And when you create these things in your own kitchen, even if it takes a little bit of time, you know what's going into them. You know what you're feeding your family and what you're not feeding your family. And that makes it very special too. So, you know, it's really important that we take some time, if not too much time. But these simple meals, you know, they don't take all day long. We haven't been here that long creating pumpkin cornbread, and now this pumpkin soup. And you can see how fast this is going. It's actually taking longer to find the can opener and the spatula than create the food itself, right? I mean, so it's really not that time consuming when you think about it. but boy, it sure is going to be good for you when you do this. And this is something that Jessica, when she created it, she says that she and her family will have this at least once a week because it's a quick, easy meal to prepare, and it's so good for you. And these products that we're making here today, these are all, you can find them all in the market. We're very lucky here in Marquette because we have the Marquette Food Co-op. And the Marquette Food Co-op, they carry a lot of indigenous food products from this area. And we also know that they locally source their food when and if they can. So we really appreciate how they've worked with us on the Decolonizing Diet Project, and even to the point of labeling their food as DDP eligible. DDP as in Decolonizing Diet Project. So that's very nice. We really like that, and it makes it much easier, more convenient, and accessible to people who may just be learning about indigenous foods. So the easier it is for them to find them, identify them, and to prepare them, the more that we believe people will actually eat indigenous foods. So these are two examples about how we're doing that. Two examples from the Decolonizing Diet Project cookbook that are very easy to prepare, and we think that you and your families will enjoy these and really benefit from the experience and the food itself. You know, it's really about recentering our relationship with those spirit beings that we call food. I'm going to grab another whisk here. Mix this up a little bit. Oh, it smells so good. I really wish there was like smell-o-vision, so you guys could smell this as I'm cooking it. But you know what? If you get that nice celebration box from the Center for Native American Studies, that's going to go along with our 25-year anniversary celebration, you're going to be actually able to make this anyway. Look at how nice and creamy that looks. Oh, it's just such a beautiful sheen on top of that soup. You got the oils there. Just, you know, you can see the oils floating on top of sunflower oil. Everything's all mixed. I'm just so hungry right now. I can't wait till the bread's done and to get this to come to a boil. And then we'll just keep it warm until our bread comes out of the oven. But, oh my gosh, it smells so good right now. I'm just really getting hungry. Chewbacca day. Really hungry. Okay, so that's where we're going to leave it. You know, right now we have it on medium. We're going to leave it on medium because we don't want to scorch it. We don't want to get it too hot too quick. And now that it's all distributed and mixed up, we'll just kind of set it there. We'll bring it to a boil, and then we'll turn it down on low. We're going to clean our mess up again, and then we're going to take a look at our bread and see how our bread's doing. Yep. It's going to be good. All right, let's check our bread.
Right, that's going to be in there.
All right, here we go. All right, so it's starting to get to a point where we can see the changing color on the side, and that's really what I'm looking for, is that changing color. So right now on the sides by the edge of the pan, it's a little bit lighter than in the center. Eventually that's going to get a little more brown, then it'll get more of a dark brown, and then you can see that the center will get a little bit drier. That's about the point where we're going to pull it out, check it, and then if it's still a little bit wet, we'll put it back in. That's why you never can tell with the ovens. The ovens all act differently. So this one has its own character. So we'll work with it, and we have to turn our pans around, switch sides, you never know. things you can do as a family. And it's healthy, you know, if you do it in a healthy way. It can also lead to unhealthy stuff, right? Like, let's go to McDonald's and drive-thru and then go sit at home and watch TV in separate rooms. So, I mean, the further we get away from that healthy center where people eat healthy indigenous foods and they talk together and they, you know, sit there and laugh together and they enjoy that food, that's the center of our family. You know, Ishko Day, fire, we cooked on that fire. That's what we did. We ate around that fire. That was the center of our homes. It was the center of our family. And so talk about place-based learning, it doesn't get more place-based than gathering around the center of your family, right? So it's pretty important.
That is very important.
Still, I'm going to turn them around. In. See, that's those ovens, right? The ovens, they got their own character.
Right.
That's done, that's not done. So I'm just going to turn them around, put them back in for a little bit.